we're going to sit. So hopefully you've all got some kind of yoga prop. It doesn't have to be an official yoga prop. It might be a towel, it might be some books. There's various things that we can use around the house. My partner tells me that in his class last night, he used the bucket from the Mop and Bucket as a prop. So, you know, anything goes. I'm not going to use that though. So we're going to sit, and we're going to come to sit in a posture called Tadasana. So it's good to have some support under your bum. I'm going for 2 yoga blocks here because I like that little bit of high support for this. So it's a wide stride, cross-legged posture. So and what I didn't say, you know, most of you have kept your screens on, but you know, you are also free to take your screen off if you prefer as well. You don't have to keep your screen on. Okay, so in this wide seated posture, wide kneed seated posture, we're bringing the heels in line with the center of the body. We're drawing the buttock flesh out and back and making sure you don't sit too far back on your lift. If you do that, this is what happens. No matter how flexible you are in the hips, it's literally going to lift your thigh bone up. And unless you have the ability to be able to bend your thigh bone, you're not going to bring your knees to the floor. So you slide yourself forward on your lift. You might need a blanket support underneath your shins, so you can pop that there if you need it. So I was just looking for my blanket. So that can be if you need a bit of proppage because your knees are lifted, or if you feel a little too pulled forwards. Okay, now we're going to bring our index finger and thumb tip together. Now there's 2 variations of this mudra when we place our hands on our lap, palms up or palms down. So I'd like you to just feel into whichever feels natural for you now, and close your eyes if you're happy to close your eyes. So each variation, these 2 variations we have with the palms up is Jnana Mudra, which means knowledge or knowing. And palms down is Chin Mudra, which means consciousness. So don't overly think about those 2 meanings, but just rest your hands and settle your breath. Drop the shoulders. And what we in part have in this mudra, there's a representation. That is, we have within the thumb what's called the para Atma, the sort of underlying nature of consciousness of everything. And then through the finger, the Jiva Atma, so our own personalized nature of consciousness. So there is a bringing together the underlying nature of the unity consciousness and our own experience of that as we bring the thumb tip and the fingertip together. So as we settle into the breath, then what we can find is perhaps a more sensitive awareness of this contact through the thumb and the index finger. And we can feel that the connection of those 2 things together, that we bring these aspects of being together, our own personalized consciousness that, you know, we feel perhaps belongs to us, but ultimately it belongs to the wider field of consciousness. So we bring these together, so there's a recognition in that. And as we feel this contact between the finger and the thumb, you know, we can feel the spark of energy between those 2 elements. We can feel the unifying quality. of self and everything. So just take a slower, deeper breath now. And really give yourself to that exhalation. So let the body just fall into the out breath. And allow your breath to follow into its own easy rhythm, easy flow. And then we're going to slowly bring ourselves out of this posture. So slowly allowing your eyes to open, allowing your finger and thumb to release from each other, perhaps giving them a bit of movement, perhaps giving your shoulders a little bit of movement here, a little bit of movement through the spine. And then when you're ready, you're going to bring your legs back in towards each other. And we're going to bring ourselves up off our block and we're going to come up to standing. Okay, so come all the way up. Now we're going to go through a little bit of movement here. I'm going to move myself some in better light for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring our feet in close towards each other as we would for Tadasana or one of our variations of Tadasana, and spreading the toes, extending through the feet. And we're going to bring our hands to the heart center. And again, we can feel, we're creating a mudra here with the hands coming together, the hands resting against the heart. So there is a seal between the hands, there's a seal between the hands and the heart center here. So we can feel all of those contact points for a moment. Just close your eyes and feel into those contact points. And again, we orientate to your breath so we can, essentially a lot of what we do in a yoga practice is what is known as Atma Vichara, which means self-inquiry. Now, it's not the self-inquiry of psychoanalysis. It's a little different to that kind of self-inquiry. But it's the inquiry into not that which moves through our layers of being, not the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the past, the future, everything that's happened to us, but it's a self-inquiry into the nature of our being. So we use the body and we use the breath to access the nature of being. And how do we do that? So what we're essentially doing is moving through layers. We're noticing the transience of what we experience within the body. Things come and go, we move through these postures. Sometimes they'll give us a really intense sensation, and then sometimes they'll be deeply relaxing. But what we will observe is that, we can't grasp onto any of these experiences because they pass. Everything passes through. So to find that which is permanent, we have to go deeper. So first of all, we recognize the transience of thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences. And then we look what lies beneath. Okay, now we're going to move ourselves forwards. So we're going to fold into a forward bend. So let's just start to turn our fingertips forwards with us as we fold at the hip joints. And then we're going to allow our fingers to turn towards the floor as we come forwards. Now you can of course bend your knees as much as you need to. If there's a strong pull on the hamstrings, on the back of the legs, you should bend your knees. You're then going to take your fingertips down towards the floor, scoot the hands forwards, obviously bending your knees if you need to come up, and raising your arms up, 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 even lifting so that perhaps you might move, and this should be more at the shoulders rather than the sort of lean forwards of the hips, although there may be a slight counterbalance, but we can allow ourselves to perhaps lean back a little into this. And then we're going to bring the hands back down, and this time passing the hands through the midline of the body. When we reach the heart center, again, we begin the turn. We allow the fingertips to turn towards the floor, and we take the hands down and we scoop forwards. We lift the chest, we breathe. Reaching up, extending back, breathing. So it's a little bit like what we might do at the beginning of a sun salutation. Just keep moving. We can continue this flow for a couple more rounds. So the idea of a sun salutation is sort of paying reverence to the sun. We're not going to go all the way through a sun salutation, but there is an element in that practice that takes the practice beyond what we might call the small self. The self that we get pulled into, the self of the thoughts, feelings, emotions, character, past, future. And there is an offering, beyond this sort of more contracted identity of being into something that is bigger than ourselves. And we can apply that to any movement. We can bring a sense of reverence to all of our movements. Now, when you next bring your hands to your heart, we're going to pause there. So a reverence to, that act of bringing together the self that we feel with the wider self, like joining the thumb and the index finger together. The localized self with the wider self. Find your breath. So again, we come back to this self-inquiry, this Atma Vichara. Whenever we're moving, we may be drawn to feeling the sensation in the body, but then we might ask ourselves from that sensation, okay, well, what does that mean in terms of leading us deeper? How can we use that sensation to reach in? Okay, you may place your hands onto your hips. You can step your feet into a wide stride. Sorry about that, that should be unplugged. Sorry for that interlude with the doorbell. So we're in a wide stride, our hands are on our hips. We're going to turn, so if you've got your mat sort of mirroring mine, that will work, but if you've got the short end of your mat towards me, you can just sort of work this out yourself, so you'll still be able to see me from this side. So Otherwise, we're going to turn the left toes in, and we're going to turn the right foot and leg out, and we're going to turn the whole body around towards the right. We're going to lift up the back heel and send it back. We're going to walk our front foot across our mat. And we're going to breathe. We're going to deepen our feet into the floor and raise up. And just find your breath. Okay, so we're looking to align the back hip with the front hip. You can lift up your back heel. You can externally rotate that heel. So in other words, internally rotate the back leg and place the foot back down. Now, you might find as you do this, it reaches into your calf a little more. So it can be useful to lift and lengthen, to deepen into the heel, to tease out that stretch through the back of the calf. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to raise our arms up. So let's feel into this. Now there might be in this posture, so we're going to move into Vajrasana, Ekam, warrior number 1 pose. So at this stage, it's very easy for us to sort of drop into the lower back, to get into a little bit of an overarch of the lower back. We don't want to remove the natural curve of the lumbar, but we do want to support the back of the body. And often we will support the back of the body from the front of the body. So we bring a little light tone to the belly, and it might be that you need a bit of movement. So, you know, I find a little wiggle of the hips or a little extension through the arms alternately will really help me to reach up out of the lower back. So try that if you need to. That's it, breathe. Okay, now we're going to lift up onto the heel of the front foot, and then we're going to bend the front knee, and we're going to extend the front leg towards a right angle. Now this is where you might need to adjust your stride, because we are looking to bring this thigh bone towards being parallel with the floor. It's okay if you're more at this angle, but sometimes we're more at this angle just purely because we haven't taken a long enough stride across our mat. Okay, and then as you sink down into the hips and feel a lift up from the feet up through the groin area, so particularly through the back leg, you can feel into the extension through the midline of the body. You can extend your arms up, you can breathe, and again you are free to move. Awareness within the pelvic floor, so as a sort of seat of support for, you know, what sits above the pelvic floor. Okay, so support shouldn't be hard or taut. Support should be sort of flexible. So just feel into that. Okay, now bring your hands together, and you can bring your hands back down to the heart center. Keep this lift up through the chest. Let your shoulder blades deepen into the back of your body as you breathe. Okay, we're going to fold ourselves forward. So let's lift up the back heel, so you can again internally rotate that leg a little more. And we're just going to fold the body until we bring the body towards a straight line with the back leg. Reach into the front knee, reach into the back heel, breathe. So by now we're probably starting to feel that burn through the front thigh. So, you know, play with it, maybe bounce a little if that helps. Release your hands from each other. Take your arms out wide now, obviously allowing for the space that you have in your room, wherever you're practicing. And then we'll raise ourselves back up, raising the arms up. We can keep that back heel lifted, so it's a little bit more of a lunge position now. That's it, breathe. Breathe. Let's take a little dip on the back knee towards the floor. Deep breaths. You can touch the floor, just kiss the floor with the back knee, and then lift up, press into the front foot. Inhale, come back to the center. You can bring your hands back down to the heart and take a deep breath. Now, perhaps you need to step your feet back together for a moment or two, particularly if you feel any tightness in the lower back. So come back in as you need to, wiggle it out. Find your breath, that's it. You know, give your feet a shake out if you need to. Yeah, any movements. I can see some various movements happening, which is wonderful to see, because what that says to me as a yoga teacher, that you're tuning into your body, you're tuning into your own experience here and what your body needs. Okay, we're going to go to the other side. So you may place your hands on hips for a little support. Turn your back toes in, so this is your right toes this time, and left foot and leg out, unless of course you did the other leg. It's totally fine. And then we can make that space across the width of our mat, so this is what will help bring the hips forward. So taking your front foot a little further over towards the outer edge of your mat, it gives you a bit more space. Lifting up the back heel, internally rotating that back leg and reaching back into the heel. So we want to plant that heel back down. But it might be that when we plant that heel back down, that there's a little stretch that's coming into that planting of the heel down. So there's a little play that we need to move into here. Perfect. And then again, we're going to raise our arms up. You can lift up and move here. Again, a little wiggle may give you a little bit more space through the waist. And then you may raise up your lead foot, your toes, bend your front knee and extend through the front thigh, feeling that reach from the inner groin towards the knee as you come down into Vajrasana number 1. And we breathe. So we feel this lift all the way up from the back foot, through the leg, through the body, up to the arms. We play around here as we need to. We have awareness in the pelvic floor, and then we constantly come back to this self-inquiry, this Atma Vichara, inquiring into the nature of being. You know, why else? You know, is it worth us moving through these postures? Yes, we might gain a little health benefits and flexibility, but you know, not being disrespectful to Pilates, we could do it in a Pilates class. But for some reason, we're drawn to yoga. And that's because of the offering of this revealing of our essence through these postures. Bring your hands together, pass your hands down again through the midline of the body, coming to the heart center, inhaling. And as you exhale, we're going to lean ourselves forwards. That's it, breathing. So you're making this straight line. That's it. You may lift up your back heel, internally rotate your leg a little more so the heel can come from the floor. Okay, take your arms out wide. Breathe. Turn your palms up towards the ceiling. Push into the front foot to raise the body up. And remember, we're going to come down into our lunge position. So the back heel is lifted. And we're going to just kiss the floor with our back knee. And then we're going to press into the front foot and inhale and push through the front leg to bring ourselves all the way up. Come back to the center, lower the arms down. Step the feet back in towards each other and give yourselves a bit of movement as you need to. Find your breath. Find your breath. So anything you need, yes, swinging, swaying, it's all valid. You know, if it moves you towards awakening in your body, then, you know, that's the purpose of yoga. Whatever you need, wiggling, shaking. And then we come back in, we come back into being. We come out of the limitation of being drawn by, a singular perspective that, we can often move around the world from the point of view of me, myself, and I. Not, in an overtly sort of egotistical way, but of course it is the ego that drives this. So this self-inquiry that moves beyond that, that allows us to shift perspectives. So this also has a little phrase in Sanskrit called pratipaksha bhavanam, which is this shifting of our awareness, shifting of our perspective. So as we move into this self-inquiry, what comes out of that is that we're able to perhaps see the world from a slightly different perspective. Okay. Let's bring our hands to our hips. We're going to turn so we're facing towards the short end of our mat. Sorry, I'm smiling because I can see Chiara's getting beaten up by one of her sons with a pillow during the yoga class. That's a first in a yoga class. Okay, so let's turn ourselves so we're facing towards the short end of the mat if you're not already in that direction. And so we've got some length in front of us and some length behind us. So obviously work with the space you have. Okay. That's it, pause, breathe. Find Tadasana. So find Tadasana, this mountain pose, which offers so much richness. And, as many of you will know, I'm always banging on about Tadasana. I absolutely love it. I even had a dream about climbing Mount Everest the other day, and I think it was because I was talking about Tadasana so much. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to drop into stillness. And it's an essential quality of yoga. So we have this common yoga sutra that gets quoted, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannarodaha, which means our yoga practice should be consistent, continuous practice. We should practice and have non-attachment. So this is what leads us towards the stilling of the mind through practice, consistent practice and non-attachment. But then, what sometimes gets missed is the sutra that follows that one, Yatno Abhyasa, Tatra Stitau Yatno Abhyasaha. Tatra Stitau Yatno Abhyasaha, which is explaining the continuous practice, which often gets interpreted by teachers that we have to kind of go at our practice. It's abhyasa, 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 continuation, practice, practice, practice. But the sutra that follows, it explains that the practice should be with an intention towards stillness. So those sutras go hand in hand. We may be putting effort into our practice, but the effort is to draw ourselves into this state of stillness, sthitau, sthiti. So this, for me, is the wonder of Tadasana. It's that state of stillness that we get drawn into. Okay. Let's raise our arms up above our head, and again let's find some length in the body, perhaps a little movement from side to side. Breathing. Okay, and then we're going to shift our weight into our left foot so we can start to raise our right leg behind us. Now, we're going to let the body turn. So we're going to keep the length down through the torso and the right leg. So as the right leg raises, the body is going to fold forwards. Now, of course, you can have your leg down lower if you need to. You can even touch back to the floor if you lose your balance. Balance, is not about coming into a perfect posture and not moving. It's about the ability of us to be flexible in terms of being adaptable to the movement that arises in the posture. That's it, breathe. Now, we'll take our arms out wide. Breathe. And then if you feel fairly steady, take your arms back and perhaps even interlace your fingers behind your back. You may have a wobble as I've just done, but that's fine, doesn't matter. Breathe. Okay, let's bring ourselves back up. Hands do not need to be interlaced, but bring yourselves back up. Place your feet to the floor, release your arms, take a full deep breath that you can give yourself to. Forehead soft, jaw released. And let's move to the other side. So let's raise our arms up again and, give yourself that space. So we want to make sure the arms are raising up because we're working through the shoulders, and you can even do this one arm at a time. So if you do feel with your arms raised that there's any tightness that comes into the lower back, it's normally an indicator that we're using the lower back to get the arms up rather than the shoulders, the movement of the shoulders. So you can encourage one shoulder to move up at a time, placing an arm on a shoulder, and you can sort of lift up into that and assist. So you can feel that rising up through the shoulders. Okay, then we're going to shift our weight into our right foot. We're going to allow the left toes to just draw behind us a little way, little light tone in the belly as you fold forwards, and the leg raises up, the body comes forwards, you extend, you breathe. And then again, we'll take our arms out wide. So these arm positions are all optional extras. And then you may take your arms back behind you. Maybe that's enough. Or if you're feeling really steady, you can take hold, interlace your fingers, draw your arms back. Let the shoulder blades squeeze in. Deep breaths. And then bring yourselves up relatively easily. Release your arms and come back in. So this is our call, isn't it? At the moment, we're all withdrawing on one level. But perhaps we can use that opportunity to move through to the next level. And withdrawing, it doesn't mean an exclusion of that which we are withdrawing from. What it is, it's that shifting perspective. It's moving our perspective to our center. So we reach out from the center rather than perhaps, reaching out from the outside, from the nature of grasping. Okay, let's turn ourselves back towards the wide end of the mat as we seem to be on a warrior mission this morning. We may as well complete that mission with warrior number 2. So let's take our feet wide. Let's turn the left toes in, lift up the heel, extend it back. So back in a diagonal direction there. Turn the right foot and leg out, the whole right leg out. The heel lines up with the back instep. So just double check that alignment and that you've got a wide enough stride. So it's wide enough that, you know, it feels like a good generous stride, but not so wide that you get a big gripping through the adductor muscles of the inner thigh. So we want to feel that we've still got some control here. We're going to raise our arms up above our head again, as we've been doing, and then feel that lift up out of the pelvis. So we're bringing extension to the waist, so the rib cage is lifting up away from the pelvis. We're breathing. And then we're going to bend our front knee and we're going to lower ourselves down. So we're going to reach through the leg, coming down. So the hips are coming down equally to each other. So there's no sort of lunging in one direction. We're keeping the body nice and upright. We're extending through the inner thighs of both legs. We're reaching in that diagonal direction from the front toes, the front of the toes of the back foot to the back of the heel. And then we're going to take our arms out wide. That's it, perfect. Breathe. Now let's reach into both fingertips. So you might move a little here to play with it. So again, this is another posture where, you know, we start to feel that burn perhaps in the front thigh. So, you know, one of the ways that we can deal with that, you know, of course you can come out when you need to, but sometimes we don't need to come out when we think we do. We might need to just shift our perspective in the posture, perhaps. We might need to perhaps meet that strong sensation with curiosity rather than, you know, an opinion of whether or not we enjoy it. Nice and open across the chest, but also open across the back of the body. You may, of course, look over your front hands if that feels like a natural continuation of the movement through the front of the body. Breathe. Okay, well done. Let's inhale and press into the front foot and come up and lower the arms down. Release the shoulders. Feel the wrists release. Feel the fingers release. Turn your feet back to the center. Breathe. Just remind yourself that we are practicing this self-inquiry into the nature of being. What does it feel like when we just drop into being here? Not dropping into thinking, not dropping into doing, just dropping into being. Okay, well done. Let's turn the back toes in, lift up the heel, extend it back behind you. Turn the front foot and leg out. So this time, right toes in, left foot and leg out. Check that alignment. So although I'm giving you this alignment, you know, I'm not overly sort of hung up on it being fixed, you know, because we all have different bodies. This is sort of the alignment that's suitable for the majority of people. It allows us the freedom of movement through the pelvis. But, you know, you can modify your alignment as you need to. So you tune into the joints, tune into the ankles, knees, and hips. Raise your arms up. That's it. Lift, breathe, wiggle, play even. And then a nice deep inhalation as you really lift up. And then as you exhale, you can bend your front knee and you can extend through the inner thigh, lowering yourself down, a little light tone in the belly. That's it, perfect. Breathe. reaching into that back heel, reaching into the front knee. See if you can feel these two directional movements through the body. Then let's bring our arms down. Let's deepen the shoulder blades into the back ribs so the chest kind of bursts open and you extend into the fingertips, and you can play here. And again, there can be a little light tone in the belly to direct the flow upwards through the torso. You may turn to look over the front hand and breathe. Okay, well done. Pressing into the front foot, inhaling and coming up. Lower your arms, just let the arms hang. Shoulders released. Wrists releasing, fingers releasing. Turn your feet back into the center. Let's step ourselves back in. You may place your hands perhaps onto your hips, and again, a little movement, a little wiggle. Let's return ourselves to our Tadasana, and let's really see if we can find some freedom in the upper back. So I'm going to go for this little bit of rolling of the shoulders. Try not to be too grindy with this. So can be, if we sort of do it without awareness, that we just feel lots of crunching sensations. But what I want us to do is to feel, as we move the shoulders, we can feel the stretch through the skin of the back and across the chest. So tune into that. What we're actually doing here is not just rolling around a joint, but we are teasing into the muscles that surround and support that area. And that's what I want us to feel, and breathe into that. And obviously keep your head and neck free. You might feel that you need to move your head and neck at any moment. So, you can wiggle your head from side to side. But again, awareness within that. There's mindfulness to the movement that we have to bring. So again, we're not just crunching through the joints of the neck, but we're feeling. And then we come and we rest. And we allow ourselves to sit within this asana seat, to sit within this posture, to sit within the experience of being in this posture, to sit within just the experience of being. So that return, tatra stitau yatno abhyasaha. That returning to stillness, the practice that cultivates stillness. Or, it can be, depending on how we look at the Sanskrit there, it can be a repeated turning to stillness. Okay, now let's just bend through the right knee. So we shift our weight into the left foot. We're going to just sway that leg a little. And actually, what is really useful in doing this, if you do have a yoga block or a book that you can stand on, it gives you a little bit of lift from the floor. So you have to lean less to be able to get that swing of the leg. So you can pop yourself on a block and then just come into that swing. Perfect. Now your arms may want to move into this, so you can let them move if they need to, if they want to. You're not trying to create, anything in particular. You're just swinging your leg, and you're swinging your leg with your breath. You're swinging your leg with this intention of swinging the leg to inquire into our own nature. How can swinging our leg lead us into that? It can lead us into that by, giving us something to draw ourselves into that is not the normal fluctuations of the mind. And you know, there's not much we can grip onto or grasp onto in just swinging the leg. You know, there's not much narrative that we can really add to this. So it has this tendency to start to draw the mind towards stillness. Okay, well done. Let's just come down if you have come up onto a block or book, and take a breath and let everything settle. Move if you need to move. And we're going to swap over to the other leg. So again, you can perhaps stand on a block or book if you have one there to hand, and then we'll just take that leg into a swing. So just see if you can feel the thigh bone really releasing from the hip joint. So we gather the momentum, and then we don't have to apply so much effort because the momentum just lets the leg move by itself almost. The little light tone in the belly again to provide that support to the back of the body. So if you get any tightness coming into the lower back, so if you are someone who's particularly mobile in the lower back, it's very easy for us to sort of go into an arching action there. So we can bring this support from the outer circumference towards the navel. Okay, well done. Let's come down, come off your block completely, and just come back to standing. Pause and breathe. And then we're going to again shift our weight into the first foot. So into your left foot, we're going to bend the right knee. Now we're going to raise that right knee up, and we're going to take hold of the shin just in front of us and see if we can establish our balance. And your balance doesn't mean that we are not moving at all. It means that we are, you know, completely intent on being focused here. We are adaptable as the weight shifts around the foot. We are willing to adapt to that and let the body move into it a little. And we've got a lightness of attitude. That's what will help us with our balance. Now we're going to just keep hold of the shin with the same hand with your right hand, and we're going to open that leg out towards the right. Now we can counterbalance this by taking our left arm out to the side, and we can breathe. So we're feeling into that hip. Now if you feel you want to move into this, feel free. If you feel fairly steady, you can play into that movement around the hip, you know, a little swing, like a little weather vane or something. Okay, and then we can either stay here. If you are totally comfortable in your knee, what we're going to do is we're going to cross that leg over the standing leg. So I'm resting my foot just above the ankle joint towards the lower knee of the standing leg. Now, if there's any discomfort in the knee there, you can stay in this position, or you can bring your leg into a Vajrasana position, into a tree pose position. But we're going to go for a little cross of the leg there. Now, what we're also going to do, perhaps, and we're just going to play, this is the early stage of an arm balancing posture, but we're just going to play with the sort of movement towards that. So we're going to bend the standing knee. We're going to allow ourselves to tilt at the hips, and we're going to start to bring our hands down. Now, we may just perhaps come to rest midway, and that's enough. There should be no discomfort on this knee. If there is, come back up. Just stick in a Vajrasana or stick in this position. Okay, if you are able to lower down, you can come down and perhaps come down to meet the floor with your fingertips. And we can breathe into, you know, that deep stretch that we start to find in the buttock. That's it, breathe. Okay, well done. We're going to come back up. So you can bring your hands back up towards the leg. You can bring yourself all the way up. You can release the leg, take a deep breath, and almost certainly we need a little Perhaps a pat out, a little wiggle of the buttocks, so we can feel how the gluteal muscles have come in for support on that posture. So that's the residue there. And then take a deep breath. Return to stillness, Tadasana. It's a perfect opportunity. Practice a non-attachment, Abhyasa and Vairagya. So we're not attached to the outcome. We're not attached to what, this posture is going to look like. We're not even attached to how yoga makes us feel. We just do it with this intention of moving towards stillness. Okay, let's shift our weight into the right foot, raise the left leg up. We can just take hold of our shin to start with. We can breathe. Perhaps you want to give that foot a wiggle, the raised foot. It's quite nice to get into the ankle joint sometimes in this position, so feel free to move. And then again, we're going to keep hold of the shin with the left hand. We're going to open the leg out. You may take your arm out to the side for a little counterbalance here, and feel free again to move. Obviously, again, no discomfort in the knee. So the knee of the standing leg here shouldn't feel any consequence of this movement. We're just getting into the hips. And then again, if you feel totally comfortable in this knee of this raised leg, you can cross the leg over so it's crossing over the thigh. You're resting it just above the ankle towards the lower part of the thigh, and then we're going to come forward. So we may take a little lean forward. So I'll do this sideways on so you can see that I'm turning from my hip joints to move into this. We take a little lean forwards, perhaps just resting our hands, perhaps bringing our forearms down towards the leg, perhaps coming down towards the floor to bring our fingertips. You can allow this standing leg knee to bend as well and breathe into that hip stretch. So it's a super deep stretch we get there. Fantastic. Let's bring ourselves up. So hands back up, raising the chest, releasing the leg, placing the foot next to the other one, standing tall, breathing freely. Enjoying your breath, enjoying this moment here now of peacefulness. Jaw relaxed. So allow your teeth to separate the upper teeth from the lower teeth. So we release the hinge of the jaw. The breath flows freely, easily. Okay, we're going to come down. Now I'm going to show you this from the side, so it's useful for you to see. We are going to do a little arm balance. So, it might be that you're not lifting your feet off the floor, and that's fine, because actually there's plenty of work before we even come to the lifting the feet stage. So Vajrasana. So we're going to take our knees apart, and then we're going to take our hands forward. So this is called the crane pose. So maybe from the front first of all, and then what you're doing here at this stage is you're sliding your arms underneath, so you're getting as much contact as high up the arm as you can with the inside of the leg. So this is what's going to help you raise up in the pose, that really good contact. So come to here. Hands are then firmly on the floor, about shoulder width apart, and then we're simply going to lift our bum up and shift ourselves forwards like this. That's enough. So let's all just come to this stage. Those of you who are really proficient in the posture, you are welcome to take your feet up if you wish, but we can do this a couple of times. So we can just establish feeling the weight into the hands here, becoming a little lighter on the toes. That's all you need. And there's plenty going on here. Deep breaths. Okay, come back. There we go, sitting upright, relaxing the shoulders, allowing the wrists a little time to just settle. And then we're going to do it again, and maybe you might come to that same position, light on the toes, or perhaps this time you may lift your toes up off the floor. So really get that good stretch forwards, draw your arms back. So you've got good firm contact of the upper arms against the shins. Hands to the floor, lift your bum up, leaning forwards, and then maybe this time that lightness on the toes, they may start to lift up, and you can start to raise your feet up towards your buttocks. Breathing, breathing. Okay, that's it. It might be that your toes stay on the floor, that's fine. Maybe you might try it a couple of times. Okay, well done. Calm down. Bring your knees to the floor. Extend your feet back. Sit back on your heels. Take support if you need to between buttocks and heels, underneath the ankles if you need to. And sit. Rest your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. Give yourself to your breath. And as you give yourself to your breath, let it be an offering of giving yourself to awareness. Because what the breath carries is the ability for us to move into full awareness, because the breath is continuous, like awareness, like consciousness. It's continuous. It's often hidden, as is the breath. We're not always aware of the breath. But giving ourselves to awareness of breath can allow us to give ourselves to the wider field of awareness, to awareness of that which is continuous. Consciousness. Okay, we're going to bring ourselves forwards, to bring our hands to the floor, maybe step our knees back a little so our wrists are a little further forwards than our shoulders. We can tuck our toes under, we can spread our fingers, we can move around a little here as we wish. And then when you're ready, you're going to bring yourselves up into Adho Mukha Svanasana, so really lifting the hips. I like to keep my knees bent and my heels lifted to start with, to get that lift into the hips, to get that, really sort of sharp angle of the pelvis. And then I'll bring my legs towards extension, but not just simply straightening the legs, but feeling a movement up through the legs as I bring them to extension. So it's a movement, a flow of energy that brings the legs into extension, not simply a taking out of the bend of the knees. And we can deepen our hands into the floor, and again, we bring that length to the body by feeling that extension from the hands up through the arms, up through the body. So it's a movement, it's a flow of energy. And we breathe. And we can sway into it as we wish. You are free to totally move your body as you need to in the posture. But movement is always serving stillness. It's always serving stillness. Okay, let's take a little lean forward. So we bring the shoulders above the wrists. We're going to make that straight line with the body. You may bring your knees down to the floor if you need to. Bring a little tone to the belly. Lift your chest forwards. Breathe. Okay, and because I think we're all feeling strong today, we're going to lower down through a Chaturanga Dandasana. So you're going to bend your elbows, you're going to tuck your arms in towards the body, and you're going to come down so you're just lifted off the floor, hovering, reaching back into the heels, reaching the chest forwards, breathing. And if you haven't already collapsed to the floor, you can collapse to the floor right now. And then take some deep breaths. You can support your head with your hands. So the taking of deep breaths, it's not really the taking of the breath, it's the absorbing yourself into, the breathing process. It's not a grasping, it's not a trying to, get something from your breath. But again, it's an offering of yourself to your breath. So what a deep breath really translates as is a fully conscious awake breath, a fully integrated breath. Okay, when you're ready, I'd like you to come up onto your forearms. So you bring your elbows beneath your shoulders. You take your hands forwards. So they are shoulder width apart. I'm going to turn myself around just because I think you get a better view from this side because of the light. Okay, so shoulder width apart. We're going to lift and lengthen our legs back. So you lift up a leg and you point the toes back so you're extending out through the front thigh area here, through the front groin, and you reach back a couple of times on your legs. You deepen your forearms into the floor and you pull the chest forwards and up. And we deepen the shoulder blades into the back of the ribs to open the chest. And we breathe. Okay, now your hand that is closest to me can come to the floor like this. Then your leg that's closest to me, obviously you can change that, can draw up and back behind you. I don't know whether, I think my leg is just disappearing into the wood burner from your point of view, but I'm drawing my leg back behind. Now, this other hand you can turn, so you feel less pulled on the shoulder. So we can really reach back. Now, we're going to play with that reaching back, depending on the space you have, leaning the chest forwards, drawing the leg back behind you. That's it. Reach through. Breathe. Okay, now pull that leg back in, press into the forearm. Rotate yourself back towards the floor. Align your forearms. Perfect. You may need to reach those legs back again so you feel lengthened through the front groin area. And then again, you're going to move to the other side so you can bring your other hand onto the floor. You can raise up your leg. So it's the hand and leg that's furthest from me, and then you're going to lift and you're going to turn. You're going to bring that leg back behind you. You can rotate the supporting arm so you feel comfortable in the shoulder. And again, I'm going to turn myself around so I can still see you. And you draw that leg back, okay? Now we can draw the leg back further and dip the chest down towards the floor. So you can move this supporting hand as you need to. So you can really move into, that's it, a little twist there. And then you pull that leg back in. You rotate yourself back to the floor. You bring your forearms onto the floor. And then you lay yourselves back down, head on the hands. And then maybe a little wiggle of the hips from side to side. Wiggle out the lower back. Find some space there for the lower back. Find your breath. Okay, hands to the floor, press into your hands, come back, sit back on your heels again, Vajrasana, take support as you need between the buttocks and heels, beneath the ankles, rest your hands in your lap, drop the shoulders. Forehead softens, jaw releases, breath flows. You may, in your own time, move yourselves into a child pose here. So you can do this with your knees together or apart. We'll keep the big toes towards each other. You can draw your buttock flesh out and back to assist with the tilt of the pelvis. And then you can slowly lower yourselves down. So feeling a sinking back towards the groin area, a pouring forth of the body, a release of the head to the floor. Take support under your head if you need it, so you can pop a folded blanket or block there if you need it. That's it, and just give yourself. And take some deep breaths and feel those breaths into the back of your body here. Feel those breaths into the back of your body. Okay, in your own time, you can walk yourselves back up, walking your hands in towards you to bring yourselves up. Now, hopefully you've all got a blanket or towel nearby. If not, you can use your yoga mat, and you can sort of use part of your yoga mat to roll over the end. What we need, just grabbing my blanket, I'm still here, is a blanket that we can roll up. So many of you will be familiar with this laying over a rolled up blanket. So we're going to, you can either roll it from the long end or the short end. The thicker you roll it, the thicker it ends up being. So if you're rolling from the short end, it's going to be a little thicker, but that will be stronger into your back. So so if you've got a fleecy kind of blanket, I recommend going for something that's a bit thicker, because they tend to sort of almost collapse a little bit. If you've got a cotton blanket like this or a towel, then they hold a little bit of firmness, so you might not want to have it quite so high. And then you're going to pop it on your mat. We're going to lay over it. So we're going to lay over it so it comes over, the body comes over the blanket, and we're opening the front of the chest so it corresponds with the sort of lower part of the breastbone is directly where it will be. The bottom tips of the shoulder blades will make a little bit of contact, and then our shoulders will come over the top of it like this to the floor. So I'm tucking my pelvis forwards to bring myself onto it, and then my shoulders, you can see they're coming over and they are making a little contact with the floor. If they're being pushed up too much, what it normally means is that you're too low down on your blanket and you need to move your body up further away from the blanket, so head further away from the blanket. Okay, and then you can take your arms out to the side, and you can either have them in this nice wide position. This is just a really lovely sort of open, relaxed, spacious position to come into. But if you're feeling, you know, a little bit more energetic, you can bring your hands together, maybe extending the index fingers, wrapping the thumbs, and you can extend your arms over so you can stretch into it. Okay, we can then extend the legs out. Obviously, if you're not comfortable in the back of the knees or in the lower back, you can keep your knees bent. And then you're either reaching into the posture to really reach through the body, or you are just completely giving yourself. So we've kind of got two almost opposite ways of approaching this posture. And it might be that perhaps you approach it with a more dynamic action first and then relax into it. But either way, whichever approach we're using, you know, we might interpret that dynamic approach as the action of abhyasa, this, you know, very direct, consistent practice or effort that goes with that. And perhaps we might interpret the giving to the pose as vairagyam or vairagya, which is the non-attachment. But either way, it's the practice and the non-attachment that lead us to stillness, that lead us to yogacitta vritti nirodha, the mind stilling itself from the fluctuations. And again, it's this movement. The constant practice is the practice of moving to stillness or to reveal stillness. In that state at which yoga happens, in the stilling of the mind, then leads us to experience our essence nature. Okay, wherever you are now, I would like to bend your knees and place your feet to the floor. So if they're not already there, do that. And then we're going to just lift our pelvis up a little way from the floor. So our weight shifts into the blanket and we breathe. And we allow ourselves to roll the shoulders towards the floor so the pelvis can lift up a little more until we've got a really good contact with the shoulders. And we're going to push that blanket down away. And we're going to lower the pelvis back down to the floor. We're going to place our hands onto our belly. We're going to take a deep breath here, give ourselves to that breath. And let the back settle. So here we're resting in that stillness that reveals our essence. Tadadrashtu swarupe avastanam, Patanjali says. And then our essence nature is revealed. Or then we rest in our essence nature. So our practice that's led us to stillness then leads us to our essence. So this is the Atma Vichara, this is the self-inquiry, this is where it goes, this is the sort of wormhole that we move into through our yoga practice. Everything leads to the center, everything leads to consciousness. Okay, you may bring your knees in towards your chest now. Just walk out the pelvis a little so you've got a little space there. We're going to take hold of the knees in each hand so you're holding each knee independently. And we're going to play into a little bit of movement around the hips here. So perhaps drawing the knees in and taking the knees out wide, or you may move the knees back and forth. You can just play into any movement there through the knees, through the hips, whatever feels good. I'm really happy for you to, be as creative as you wish here. You might roll into it, perhaps rolling to one side, rolling to the other. Just feel into it. So, like you are practicing your yoga in your own home, which you are. This is something that I sometimes say to students in a class, just move as though you were at home alone, no one were watching you. And now we have that opportunity through the magical world of Zoom yoga, that we have, this wonderful opportunity to connect with each other and practice together, but we also sort of have the freedom that comes from being in our own space. May you feel free to explore as you wish. Okay, you can bring your knees back into the center, maybe give them a hug now. Have a little roll around, again, some steady breaths. And then we'll release the feet to the floor. We'll take the arms out wide. And we'll just move the knees from side to side, a little like windscreen wipers. So your feet are around hip width apart. So we can move into just a very easeful twist. So we just, more than anything, we're sort of feeling less of the twisting action that we often get through the belly where we get that deep twist, but we're feeling more of the extension through each side of the body as we let our legs move from side to side. And then come back into the center. You realign yourselves when you're ready. And it's from here that you're going to lay yourselves down for Shavasana. So you might want to roll onto your side to perhaps get warmer clothing, set up your perfect Shavasana setup. That's what I want you to go for now. Don't settle for anything less than the most perfect Shavasana setup. Head support if you need it, knee support if you need it, blankets, socks, whatever is useful. Maybe in future you can have a hot water bottle ready even. You know, indulge yourself in a Shavasana that allows you to just totally surrender to it. So see if you can be immersed in your breath and allow, your breath to be immersed in you. So the breath and the body and the mind and our experience of being come together like the thumb and the index finger in that mudra at the beginning of the class. We close the circuit of separation between these elements of ourself, and everything is brought together. And to quote Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras one last time, the very first sutra, Hatha Yoga Nujasanam. The teaching of yoga is now. This is it. This moment right now, this holds everything there is to know of yoga. It's not in the stored memory bank of what we've previously learned or experienced. It's not in that projection of, oh, when I can do that, then I'll be a great yogi. It's now. It's here. Integration is now. So to be in that, we give ourselves to now. We've had this enforced stopping. This is called stambhana in Sanskrit. And what comes from an enforced stopping is the ability to rest in the truth of the moment. Take 2 or 3 spacious breaths. So you can really experience the breath as space that comes into the body and as it leaves the body. Space within and space around. And then when you're ready, you may slowly bend your knees and place your feet to the floor. If you have something behind your knees, you can just give that a little push forwards with your feet so you can place your feet to the floor. And then you may gently roll onto your right side and pause there. And then you may roll over onto your other side and pause there. And then in your own time, you may slowly start to bring yourselves up from your side, come up with ease, with breath. And come to sit in any comfortable seated posture. And we'll close the class together. So we'll chant Om 3 times together. So you may bring your hands to your heart and close your eyes. And then let's take a deep inhalation to prepare. Om. Thank you all very much. Namo Vaha, namaste. Thank you. I hope you all are feeling okay. Not okay. I hope you're all feeling wonderful. And I hope you all have a lovely day. You're free to unmute before you go if you wish. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me. So hopefully, thank you very much. So I hope to see you all soon. I've got two classes tomorrow if you want, a lunchtime class at 12:15 and an